Hello, everybody. At first, I want to thank Brazilian government to invite me to participate in third global conference to child labor to reduce good practice in my country, the Syrian refugees crisis in Jordan, and impact on the incidence of child labor. Everybody, can you imagine that the population in your country increased by 20% in a space of 18 months? Imagine impact this has on vital public service in a country already suffering from economic crisis. Currently, 500,000 registered Syrian refugees in Jordan. Actual figures much higher, and anticipating over 1 million by end of 2013. Jordan continues to keep its ports open, but more support urgently needed from international community to provide vital service to Syrians and vulnerable host communities. It's a big challenge. We need the support for these Syrian refugees in Jordan. Characters of refugees, Syrian refugees in Jordan. Refugees have filled with little more than clothes on their backs, mainly from rural and impoverished areas, and therefore highly vulnerable. Mostly women, children, elderly, and a few breadwinners crossing with family. Most refugees have settled outside camp setting, making humanitarian outreach challenging. Limited funding undermines capacity to provide anything more than essential need and service. Impact in labor market in Jordan. That's why Syrian refugees, because of funding limitation. Funding in Jordan is limited. Syrian families are struggling to survive. For those in camps, it is difficult, but at last they have food, shelter, and service. For those outside camps, it is a different story. To put food on the table and pay rent, Syrians are entering labor market, most illegally. Whose Syrian refugees worked out camps. All of these Syrian refugees working illegal. And this is causing major problems for government, as unemployment is already a significant problem, and there is a very large migrant labor population in Jordan. Syrians are destabilizing labor market, and this will cause serious social tensions if left unchecked. Another impact in labor market in Jordan, situation is causing downward pressure on working conditions, leading to violation of labor law. One worrying outcome of this situation is unchecked growth of child labor among Syrian refugees' children. Estimates put figure and around 30 child laborers. This is statistics in the national statistic in Jordan, making analysis in 2007. But now indicators talking it's an increased child labor in Jordan, included Syrian refugees. Like what I says, but in reality figures very likely higher. So child labor population in Jordan has more than doubled in 18 months. When Syria situation in war, it's beginning, and all of Syrian refugees comes in the Jordan. Children work in variety of sector, but mainly agriculture and informal sector, such as constructions, street vending, and retail servers. Families sometimes send children to work for fear of losing humanitarian support if parents work. About challenges in response, prior to crisis, strong policy and legislative framework in place to address child labor among Jordanians. Minimum age of employment and compulsory education in Jordan is 16. Hazardous work for youth between 16 to 18 is monitored based on hazardous work list. In 2011, government endorsed national policy, national framework to combat child labor. This policy talking about referral system with the three ministries, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Social Development, to help children workers. Government benefiting from support of ILO IBEC, beginning in 2012. Project to assist implementation framework and establish national monitoring system for child labor. Syrian crisis and growth in child labor among Syrians are undermining the national response. Jordanian law does not discriminate between Jordanian children or Syrian children or any nationality. In addition, government support for Syrian refugees includes free access to education and health service for those Syrian refugees' children. Challenges is not in application of public policies in Jordan. Coverage of this is universal, but how to address poverty for refugees when it is struggling to address poverty for host communities. Even though education is available for Syrian refugees children who's working, many children either do not enroll or drop out, and many reasons for this, including belief or hope that they will return home soon and therefore need not go to Jordanian schools and learn the Jordanian curriculum. This problem exists even in camps where environment more controlled. Cannot oblige families to send children to school, so they usually end up working. Influencing factors were not ready or prepared for crises of this scale, not expected, and especially issues affecting labor market and child labor. This did not happen with the previous refugees influx in Jordan, like Iraqi refugees, children, Iraqi refugees or Palestinian, but Syrian refugees is different. In Ministry of Labor, this has particularly impacted on labor inspectors who cannot cope with scale of problem. This issue in Jordan saw no experience or capacity. International funding and independent, it's a little bit. Yani we need more funding from international countries. Approach adopted learning by doing. Unfortunately, in Jordan, to have US dollar funded ILO now, a new project, child labor project, in place at time of a crisis. Other countries might not have such support available, has provided assistance and leadership. Need to learn from experience in Jordan. Mistakes have been made and opportunities missed, and need to make sure this do not happen again. Statistic planning are key, and this should be supported in future by application of minimum standard for children protection in a humanitarian action, particularly standard 12 on child labor. Challenge we face as national actors responsible for applying policies and legislation relevant to child labor is that referral to national services cannot be used in cases of Syrian refugees children. Service available to Syrian refugees not the same as those provided through national mechanism and vice versa. Therefore, national actors need to be informed on process or referral for Syrian refugees children so that when discovered can be referred directly to humanitarian service providers. Likewise, humanitarian actors need to be informed on national referral mechanism and link established between all involved to reinforce the protection mechanism. Need much better coordination and collaboration between national and humanitarian actors. Avoid recreating a new system and structures and rather build on what already exists. This does not seem to be usual humanitarian approach. In Jordan, Ministry of Labor has established technical subcommittee on Syrian refugees. It's a new subcommittee under the National Committee to Combat Child Labor. This will strengthen communication, collaboration, coordination, and coherence between international organization and national organization, and main ministries who's working in the framework. Humanitarian actors have their emergency working group, but it's difficult for national actors to participate meaningfully in this. Often they do not use Arabic as their working language. Some key outcomes: investment in capacity of national actors to ensure coordination and also to strengthen child protection framework for refugees include supporting meaningful involvement in humanitarian process, system and structures. Standard 12 on child labor of minimum standards for child protection in humanitarian action provides comprehensive framework in addressing child labor among refugees, but need to disseminate it more widely, used more effectively, and translated into national language. If we had this in January 2012, situation would probably not be so bad. Institutional leadership to drive action forward is key. In Jordan, ILO has done this with Ministry of Labor, but this might not always be possible. So design leaders and provide them support. Be more aware of existing national response in Jordan. There is a strong enabling environment to address child labor, and this should be expanded to address Syrian refugees child labor. Even though funding is a problem in Jordan, child labor should be priorities in a humanitarian and government response. Otherwise, it becomes a bigger problem and harder to address. Need initiative and creative solution to address refugees child labor in Jordan. Typical intervention to address child labor are not working. For example, education poverty to critical, and this made worse by limited international funding. How to address poverty in such a way that vulnerable families in hosting communities benefit as well, and how to encourage families to send their children to school. Thank you very much.